All right, we are ready to get started. Thank you guys again for tuning in. My name is Kristen B. Welcome to In Session Self Management Strategies for Musicians. I am your host, and I cannot wait to get into this with you all. I'm joined by some amazing self managed and previously self managed artists who are going to share with us the secrets to successful self management. So, we're going to dive into those strategies for building your musical projects while balancing creative growth with business savvy hustle, things we all want to know. So today I'm joined by Gabriella, or AKA Guitar Gabby, Austin Antoine, and Jesse Rubin. So let's start with Jesse, and then go around my screen. Feel free to share your preferred gender pronouns and tell the crowd a bit about yourself and who you are.
Cool. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name's Jesse Rubin. I go by he and him. I'm a singer-songwriter, kind of like a folk pop artist from Brooklyn, sort of just like traveling troubadour kind of thing. I really, really believe in powerful songwriting and meaningful lyrics. And I also run an education program based on one of my songs called the We Can Project, where I work with elementary and middle school kids which and teach them to try new things, develop new skills, and give back to their communities, which is a pretty cool thing.
Amazing, amazing. I love that. Thanks for being here with us.
Was that
Next,
enough
Guitar Gabby.
information? Was that good?
It was great to me, and we can always share
Perfect.
more as well. So that was spot on. Guitar Gabby, can you share your preferred gender pronouns as well?
Hey, my name is Gabriella, Guitar Gabby. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the founder, manager, frontwoman, and lawyer of an all-Black female international rap band collective called The Tulips. I use a lot of my platform outside of the musical aspect. I use a lot of my platform to educate musicians and artists about the business side of the industry and the legal side. I'm a music lawyer. And so I do a lot of work with helping clients and artists understand their rights, their intellectual property, and going through contracting. Because to me, those are some of the most important parts of self-management and your musical journey. So, yeah.
I love it. Perfect. Thanks again for joining us, Gabby. And last but not least, Austin, can you share a bit about yourself?
Yes, pronouns are he, him. I'm Austin Antoine. Hey, everybody. I am a performance artist whose medium is through rap and through music. I am a connoisseur of independent performance outlets, so thoroughly enjoy being involved with SoFar sounds and everything. I also put on independent events as well, currently doing independent streams with underground artists and a lot of different ways of keeping in touch with people that are in need of, I guess, human interaction, making the dopest thing you can find inside of your Wi-Fi.
Love that. Thank you, Austin, for joining us as well. So I'm super excited. Such an amazing panel of musicians here. So before we get into everything, we received some amazing input from our attendees ahead of this webinar. So thank you all for putting in any of your questions that you had ahead of time. We'll be discussing those for the first 45 minutes of the call, and then we'll have a Q&A towards the last 15 minutes of the call. So just a few housekeeping tips we have for Zoom. This is going to be a supportive and uplifting space, so we want to make sure that we keep all the dialogue in the chat as respectful as possible when we get into the discussion. Also, please feel free to use the chat to share where you are, where you're tuning in from, your support for the panelists, as well as anything that is resonating with you like you guys already have been doing. When you are in the chat function, make sure to change that little blue bar from panelists to panelists and attendees so we can all see what you're saying and be able to join in with that. Also, if you have any questions that come up during the webinar, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So you can submit your questions there. We will address those questions towards the last 15 minutes of the session. So please feel free to drop those in there. We don't want it to get lost in the chat, so the Q&A function is definitely the best place for that. And the last but not least, you're going to receive a short survey after the webinar just to get your thoughts, any topics that you want us to discuss in future in sessions. So please definitely feel free to take that survey as well. So we're ready to get into the meat of it. I'm ready to get into the meat of it. I hope you guys are as well. So let's just get started. What does it mean to be self-managed? And we can, I guess, start with Jesse. What does that mean, even?
To me, that means you wear a lot of hats, a lot of which you may not want to or have any desire to or be particularly good at. I think uh, being a singer songwriter specifically is the experience I can talk about. Actually performing and being on stage and writing songs is a pretty tiny portion of my job description, because you also end up booking your own shows. Oh, you need a website? Well, you could pay someone to do that, or you could spend 2 or 3 days and learn how to use Squarespace and build your own website. Oh, you want to get on the radio? Do you have a list of every radio station that should play your song? Have you reached out to them? Like, I just find that being self managed as an artist just means actually playing music and writing music and performing music is a very small percentage of what my day-to-day life and career actually look like.
Awesome. Love that insight. Austin, I feel like you got something you'd like to add.
Well, that was pretty much summed up a lot of it. The idea that it's self accountability. It's being able to get self accountable. That's the main one that comes to mind: self accountability. So if you want to attain certain situations and strive for certain goals, and it's a lot of it is on you. It's you're the one with your hands on the wheel about your career and with the choices that are happening, and no one else really takes the blame for it. I guess that's the best word that comes to mind. But yeah.
Definitely. All on your shoulders. Gabby, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, everything that's already been said. And I think in addition to that, like, just learning the business as a whole. I think a lot of times artists, all of us, can tend to do it, especially when you're starting your journey. But like a lot of times artists look at the music industry as this big bubble of just music. But a lot of times what people don't realize is that the music industry is a business, and the business aspect of it is what drives it. So if you don't understand a lot of that, or if you don't have people on your team that you can trust to run those things and manage those things, it kind of makes the journey not impossible, but just difficult. So I definitely think like with self-management, a lot of it is, autonomy and like running your own shit. But, like Jesse said in the beginning, wearing a shitload of different hats, that there are just a lot of things that have to be covered. And so, yeah, it's a lot, but it's also rewarding.
Amazing. And go ahead, Austin. Yep.
Yeah, and one more thing too is I think something that I've found very helpful for self management is the ability to if I have a weakness of a certain hat, is not being afraid to reach out to someone who is able to help me strengthen that. So even if it's not a situation of getting someone to build the website for me, it would be a situation of who knows how to do a website or who's gone through this situation before. Can I get some advice? It's being a jack of all trades and genuinely being willing to learn, and all the things, even if you have shortcomings, being willing to learn or be helped to learn.
Love that. Gotta be open. Oh, Jesse? Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think a huge part of being I feel like we could just do this question for the whole time. A really big part of it, because I know there's people that are like, I want to make music and I don't know how to get it out there and all this stuff. Asking for what you want and what you need is a huge part of it. And I know a lot of people that are like, I don't want to impose and I don't want to like annoy anybody. Asking for what you need often, all the time, whether or not you're going to get a response or the response you want, is a huge, huge part of it. Asking for help, asking for a gig, asking for money, asking for an opportunity, yeah, that's a big part of it.
Be
for
afraid
me.
to put yourself out there. Yeah, definitely. And that kind of, Go
Well,
ahead,
I was just going to really quickly add on to growing up, my mom always told me, asking you shall receive, because you never know what the answer is going to be. And a lot of times, like when you're setting your goals and you're just putting out like your manifestations of what it is that you want with your journey and your career, you'd be surprised the amount of people that will respond that you didn't think were going to respond. Or you'd be surprised sometimes you might get somebody that says, hey, why don't I just jump onto your team and do this for you? So you never know. So definitely ask and see what you get back.
Totally. Love that. And I think that, that definitely kind of funnels into the next question. There are, some artists that are self-managed out of necessity, but there are some artists that choose to, manage themselves. So what are some of the benefits? Like, why would someone, what are some of the benefits to self-management that artists should leverage?
I got something for that. I think a big benefit for self, I equate management to a relationship. It's the same way. It's the same way that you would treat dating. If you feel that you'd be more complete with a partner, then that would be a situation of getting a manager, because you're seeing something that's elevating not only your what you're doing, but also your quality of your quality of life, I guess, your quality of experience. Dang, this I should make music or something. That sounds deep. Um, but also, if you are a very self-sufficient person, if you are, a strong, independent, I was gonna say strong, independent woman. If you are a strong, independent artist, and like, you have that mindset to do things, and you're self-motivated, then no need to jump into that relationship just yet if you're finding that strength in self.
Love. Go ahead, Gabby. I'm sorry.
Oh, I would say one of the biggest benefits to me for self-management is ownership. A lot of times with these major label contracts, people, a lot of times when you're on your journey, you're seeing other people that are doing big things, they have all this money and all of these videos and all that kind of stuff. But what a lot of times what us as artists don't realize is you're you're signing contracts that are not necessarily going to give you ownership of the greatest asset you have as an artist, which is the ability to write your music and the music that you actually produce from that ability. So for me, ownership is the number one thing, because with copyright laws, and I'm not going to go on my tangent with that, but like with copyright laws and how long you have protection for what is actually federally recognized under whatever it is that you copyright. I mean, that's eternity. Like that's your life. That's what your children can eat off of. So learning how to navigate what you own definitely will be a huge benefit within self-management. So that's the number one thing for me. And it takes a little bit longer to reach your goals because you're figuring things out, or it's just things take time. But my motto is anything worth fighting for is worth the time that you put into it. And I look at it as an investment and not losing money or I'm losing time. I look at it as I'm investing into something that I want. I'm investing into something that I'm building. And any major record label, any major company, any productive entrepreneur is going to tell you the same thing, which is you have to invest. And it may not seem like you're getting anywhere, and you're definitely not going to make any money at first, but continuing to water that flower, eventually it's going to bloom into something that's beautiful.
I just wanted to add, creative autonomy, I think, is like really, really important. I was self-managed for a long time. I just started working with a management company during quarantine, and it's been challenging for me because I'm so used to doing whatever I want all the time. Trying to now navigate other people's opinions and what they think is best can be really challenging. I will say another thing that's very helpful with being self-managing and doing everything yourself is you get to keep all of your money that you make, which to me is pretty important, and it shouldn't be overstated.
Super important. Definitely love that. The autonomy, the creative freedom, all of that is super important, and it often gets overlooked. You often think that, oh, I need a manager, I need to do this, but there are great parts about being your own manager. So say I'm an artist and I'm an emerging artist. What are the areas that I should focus on, those top areas for me if I'm looking to build a career and a thriving business with my music? Like, how should I just start? What should I look for and focus on? I think you're muted, Gabby.
There we go. I would say that for me, the top three things are, and it's not really that much fun, but copyright, business formation, and branding. Again, going back to copyright, I feel like if it's not, for me, if it's not copyright protected, if I have not filed it and gotten that paper that says that this is protected with my name on it, then nobody outside of the four walls of my house is listening to it. Because there's just so many people out there in the world that work twice as hard as you do on your own craft. There are people that work that hard, if not harder, to take it, because everybody is not a hard worker. Everybody doesn't want to put in the work for things that they want. Some people would just prefer to just take it. when it comes to business formation, again, going back to like the music industry is a business. So I think that there are a lot of really good perks that come with forming your music or your band or your artistry underneath a business title, like an LLC, for example. There are a lot of great long-term perks that come with that. One of them being taxes, and everybody got to pay taxes. But that's another really good perk. And then branding. If you have a tight packaged brand that aligns with your music, the sound of your music, your look, your color scheme, all of that kind of stuff, then it's easier to push forward a whole vehicle instead of just individual parts that are not really aligned or have any type of cohesiveness. So for me, those are the top 3 areas that I would start with.
There's piggybacking off of that, as far as branding goes. It's so beneficial, and it's something I have to remind myself daily, to avoid perfection paralysis and this want to ask for permission to be dope. Because if you want to pursue this, if you have an interest or an intrigue in this, then it's always beneficial to go into spaces with the understanding that I am going to benefit others with what I'm providing. For example, I am a musician, yet I don't do performances with instruments. So whenever I have the ability, I have people that I'm in touch with that are able to play instruments and everything like that, an accompanist. However, at the same time, I'll do a show just with the speaker. I'll walk into a space with the speaker, have that speaker playing music, and I know for a fact that it's still going to connect with people. I know for a fact that I'm going to get a growing experience. I know that I'm going to expand my outreach and all sorts of things and get stronger as an artist and as a brand, because I know that what I'm providing, the service that I'm providing, is undeniable. So with that faith in myself, I am also able to have faith in the building of a brand and my artistry.
I wanted to add that all of those things are super important. I wish that people had stressed business acumen to me when I was younger and coming up, and because I'm sure all of us and a lot of people watching this have gotten screwed over, especially when they were younger. If you are watching this and someone hands you a contract, do not sign that contract. Have tons of people read it that know more than you. Do not sign that contract. But specifically speaking to new artists and young artists coming up now, because I get a lot of messages from people like that. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. A lot of people, especially with social media, they like, I want to get started, I want to have a career, I want to build my fan base, but they're not, and they're spending a lot of time thinking about that, but they're not spending a lot of time on their craft. And I really think that, especially when you're young and you don't have financial obligations, or you're not trying to pay rent and you don't have a family and all these things, spending time, lots and lots of time practicing your instrument. If you're a writer, writing as much as you can, reading as much as you can, reading different poetry and stories, getting familiar with language and expanding yourself and pushing yourself as an artist. I think it's really important, so that when you have a good brand and when you have your copyright and when you have all these things in place, what you're putting out is awesome and is as good as it can be, and you're ready. And I know so many people, even like parents, will be like, I'm trying to get my 14-year-old like shows and an audience, and I'm always like, let your kid be 14 and come back to me when they're 20. I think we're so anxious to get there, and I like, Gabby, that you keep calling it a journey, because I do not look at it like that. I should. We want to get there, wherever that is, and really it would be helpful to spend more time focusing on what you're going to do when you get there and having good product when you get there.
Awesome. I love that. Each part of the journey has its perks. At the beginning, when you have time to really sit with yourself and understand who you are and how you want to present yourself to the world, and learning more about what you need to put in place, building that foundation to have a successful career is super, super important. So taking that time to really just enjoy where you are and making the most of it is huge. So totally appreciate you guys for that. And with that said, what are 3 things you guys have kind of been dropping these gems kind of here and there, but what you guys wish you would have known earlier in your career that would have gotten you to where you are a lot faster? What are like 3 things that you wish you would have known? Austin, I love that your eyebrows always tell me when you're about to say something. I know you're coming.
I have I guess I got an active face, you could say. a very big one is I wish I would have known the power of my phone book. The idea that I have inner circle or connection to people in my immediate life that can give me access or can support me in ways that I need. Be it someone to say that they believe in me, be it someone to buy a ticket, be it someone um, to ask someone else that they know for a connection on my behalf, any of those things. And that starts as simple as the first 10 numbers that pop up in my phone book and letting that run from there. Because there's always thought there was this. You're right, Jesse. The word journey does pop up. Gabby, you hit it on hit it on the nose with that. But the start of this journey, I thought that I needed to go as far out as possible to find as many things as I could. And as time's grown on, it's turned out that the people that has been around from the beginning are the ones that have been the most rooting for this. So yeah, your phone book is a superpower that you have access to, and don't deny that. That's one big one.
Piggybacking off of that, three things that I really wish that I would have known is one, and I don't think that young girls of color in particular get enough of this growing up, but that the reinforcement that you can do what you want, you can do what you set your mind towards. And I think a lot of that, we can talk for hours about it, but I think a lot of it comes down to one, just having spaces of inclusivity for education, for young girls and those that identify as female, to be able to have those spaces where they feel safe to say, you know what, I'm going to get one-on-one time with someone that looks like me, who's doing something that I would like to do. Because I wish that I would have seen a Sister Rosetta Thorpe in a magazine when I was 7, years old. I didn't really learn about a lot of the history of rock. I didn't learn a lot about the history of anything and felt comfortable in the skin that I'm in as a Black woman in America until I was, an adult. And so I spend a lot of my time, giving back to girls rock camps. We partner with a lot of girls rock camps around the world to teach. And it's not even about the money. Personally, it's not about the money. For me, it goes back to that representation and being able to just, give back to where you came from and giving back to young girls that look up to us. And the last thing, I kind of put my first two in one, but the last thing is that everyone is not your friend. And when people show you their true colors, you got to believe them the first time. Because there are, a lot of, throughout the beginning of my journey, there are a lot of people and friends that I had in my life. And I use the word friends lightly, but there were a lot of people in my life that I wanted to hold on to that just simply weren't meant to be in my life after a certain point. And it's not mean, but you have to learn how to, protect your art. You have to learn to let people that you do trust into your bubble, and those that you don't necessarily trust, it's okay to keep people at arm's length, because at the end of the day, you don't want to invite people who are going to do intentional harm or damage to all of the work that you've put into your craft, throughout, going back to that word, throughout your journey. So but I will say though, even, we all make mistakes, we're all human. And I think that there's some beauty in making mistakes and falling down, because it helps to develop your discipline, and it helps to just, push you forward into new lessons in life. So I think there's a beautiful thing that comes out of that.
Definitely. Yeah.
How am I going to follow that? That was amazing. Things that people that I wish I had known when I was starting out, treat everyone like they're the most important person in the room. When I was young and starting out, I was super arrogant. I was super hot-headed. I turned a lot of people off. I straight up ruined opportunities. Like, I have no idea what my life would look like now. I think about it all the time, because I was just convinced that I was the shit, and people were lucky to be talking to me, and thank God they found me. And also, I was terrible back then. What was I talking about? I was wrong. It's just completely wrong. Again, second one, do not sign the first contract they put in front of you. I cannot stress that enough. Do not sign it. And then the third one, which I think is really important, is being okay in the face of no, because you're going to hear it a lot, especially if you're putting yourself out there a lot. If you have something that you really believe in and you're confident in, and you're reaching out and you're asking for a lot of opportunities, you're going to hear no a lot. It's just the reality of this business. And it's okay if that sucks, because it does suck, but you have to be able to build a thick skin and be able to keep moving forward in the face of no. And I'm not always good at that. It can totally ruin your day, and you can be a mess, but you're going to hear it no, and you're going to hear it a lot, and that has to be okay. It just has to, because it's part of it.
Amazing insight. Okay, go ahead.
I have this is my additional one, I guess, because this is my additional one. But being aware of personal time versus comparative time, those are two very, very different things. Comparative time being when you're scrolling through social media and looking at what other people are doing, other people involved in your craft, whatever it may be, or spending time comparing yourself to what is going on in the art form or whatever it may be. That time is helpful. There's benefits from it, but there's so much time that you can spend. There's some people get lost so much in the time of comparison that they don't spend time self-developing. And when it comes time to show who they are in their personal time, they lose the ability to even have their own self to show, because spend so much time trying to be what the current thing is. So make sure that the comparative time and the personal time is balanced. Put it in just as much personal, or if not double, to what you do trying to compare to others. And I think that's going to make a long-lasting understanding of self.
I love that. We're definitely going to dive deep into that balance and mental health and all those things that are super important. So say I'm an artist, and I keep coming back to say I'm an artist, but just to give perspective, say I'm an artist and I've just decided this is what I want to do with my life. What is the first step I should take? Like, what is that very first thing I should do? And I know everyone's going to have a different answer, which is a plus. So what advice would you give to me to be my first step?
Tell everybody. When you want to be a teacher, you have to go to school and go to college and get a degree and pass a bunch of tests. In order to be a professional musician, I went to college for it. You don't have to do that. All you need is enough people believing that you are a professional. That's it. And if you say that you're a musician and enough people believe you, you get to be one. That's the barrier of entry. So for me, I would say tell as many people as you can, and then start asking for things, even crazy things that you think you're never going to get. Send a lot of emails, like a lot of emails, like so many emails.
I love that. Computer's going to be your new best friend.
I would say outline your goals. I'm personally a very goal-oriented person. I'm a very visual person as well. So like starting off, I was just doing things. I didn't feel like I was going in any type of direction. And one of my biggest pet peeves is wasting my time. And I felt like I was going in 16 different directions, but not really moving forward. I was just, scatterbrained. So once I sat down and outlined, okay, this is what I want to do with my company. This is, how I want to get there. And these are some of the things that need to be done in order for me to get there. Then it helped me create a clear path to reach those goals. And then once I reached the first goal, then I would set another 10 goals and then, set another 10 goals after that. So for me, I think when you can set your goals and set your intentions, then you know where you're going and what you're working for.
I love that. Austin, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I don't know if my eyebrows jumped, but it's real. First and foremost, make sure you can pay rent. Got to make sure that's covered so that you're not putting yourself in a position where you feel pressed to either putting yourself in a position of desperation of signing the first thing, or putting a call to action to everybody that supports you for a half-developed idea that you have, because you just want to get paid, because it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's pretty self-explanatory, but make sure you got rent paid. Another thing is make sure you're able to delegate when you're workshopping versus when you're in selling mode. That's not the selling isn't the best word, but that's the one that comes to mind. Because when you're able to workshop stuff, then you're able to go and, get everything to be strong and as potent as possible, so that you can make sure that when you step into a space and somebody is willing to make a transaction with you for anything, buying of merch, buying of a ticket, checking into your stream, they're not coming in to see you figure stuff out. They're coming in because you're providing the thing that they've been missing this whole time, and the reason why they should invest in your artistry. Because it is a transaction. Just as great as you want to be, you also need to make sure that you're providing that dopeness to those who want to believe in you. Those are two big ones that come to mind for me.
I love that. And all of these things, do take a lot of time and a lot of intention, like you were saying, Gabby. So, are there any tips that you have on time management and general advice for how artists can maintain that healthy balance between creativity and the business side of things, and even personal life as well?
I think like for me, I utilize a lot of calendars. I'm a post-it note junkie. I have post-it notes and like chalkboards all over all over my walls in my office. But I have to, and I struggle with this sometimes because once I get into, like, I call it go mode, but once I get into my go mode, it's very hard to get me and to get myself to take a second to like sit down. So there are some mornings when I start every morning with yoga. And another thing I was going to mention is eat like what you put into your body and on your body. So skincare time for me in the mornings and at night is like my me time. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want, I watch something on YouTube or a movie while I'm doing my skincare, I have my, glass of wine, and I'm not thinking about the shitload of things that I have to do because I know I'm going to eventually get there. I am going to do it. But I think that it's very important to like take time and say, this is going to be me time. And when I get into work time, everybody's different, but for me, when I get into work time, I have to say I'm working from this time to this time. And after this time ends, I have to move on to the next thing, whether that's personal time or, hanging out with family or loved ones, whatever. Just, setting boundaries for yourself and setting boundaries for other people that are entering into your bubble. Because if you don't set boundaries, then there's no reason to stop, whether that's yourself going into different areas of your own bubble, or whether that's allowing other people to go into other areas inside of your bubble. So I think setting boundaries, and then just like eating right, and being conscious about how you take care of your body, because you can't give out if you're putting in bad things and expecting a decent output. It's just, we're human, so you gotta treat yourself right.
Yes, love that all day.
I think boundaries is a really, really great word. I think we tend to over glorify hard work, I guess, and which especially for creative people when there is no 9 to 5, so you're on all the time, which can lead to burnout really fast, and then you start making bad choices and putting things into your body that you shouldn't, and spending time doing things that you shouldn't. Um, I know people that'll do like from this time to this time, I'm focusing on this, and then I'm going to be doing this. For me, it's very much like whatever hat I'm wearing. That if I'm in a creative place, that's what I'm going to do. If that's a day, a couple days, a couple weeks, and then I'm going to focus on business stuff, and then I'm going to focus on something else. It's hard for me to switch back and forth throughout the day. I'm just not organized, and my brain doesn't work that way. So it's all about like, all right, now we're going to be doing business stuff now, because when you're being creative, you can't be thinking about any of that other stuff, especially when you're trying to be creative. If I'm thinking about like, what does my website look like, and I haven't sent out that press release, I'm not going to write anything good. So especially when you're being creative, you want to have dedicated, focused time to that. But you also want to rest, and you also want to take care of yourself, which no one told me when I was starting out, and I didn't do a very good job.
I word word. Yes, that's I did artistry definitely started off as somewhat of a hobby for me, and then turned into a fixation, and then turned into a career. So I think it was a great trajectory, but I've retained a lot of that fixation mindset, and for that to work to help for my artistry, I need to have accountability for administrative tasks. So as Gabby was mentioning, it's great to have a form of to-do list. I do it in the form of Apple Notes. They have a little bubble things that you can do, and then you click the bubble, and then once you do, the bubble goes to the bottom of the list, and it's like you completed the task. It's like a daily video game. So I get my to-do list of administrative tasks, and there are things that I dread, and the emails, the responding to the things and doing the stuff. But it's because I want to make sure I get all these things out the way so that I can have a clear head to be as creative as possible. And a big thing to follow up on that is with that creative time, there's sometimes when I'm not able to be good, I'm not things that I'm creating aren't up to my standard, and rather than treat it as a lost day, I treat it as I think administratively in that sense, where I allow myself this hour to 2 hours to be just bad and make bad things, and just it's going to be a bad one today, and let's just invest in that. and then I allow myself to rest. Or it's a good day, and then I can do get in my fixation mindset, and then I have to be accountable to say, all right, I've put so much time into this thing, into this song, into this writing process, into this creative visual, whatever it may be. I need to distance myself from it and rest. So it's that level of accountability so that I can come back again tomorrow with the same level of energy, because you got to treat it just like a healthy diet. Make sure that what you're doing, your output and your input are at a good balance.
I love that. And it's been so amazing to like hear how different each of your strategies is around your day and how you approach all of the tasks that need to get done. And I think it's important for artists and people in general to know that we're all different. So what works for me may not work for you based on, your lifestyle and who you are and what you want your day and life to look like. So, figuring out, and that was like one of my questions, like walk me through a day, and what you do. And like Gabby, it's for you, it's yoga and nutrition, and then getting all of your administrative tasks and like time blocking. So on this set of time, in this hour, this 2 hours, I'm working on this, and the next 2 hours, I'm working on this. And for you, Jesse, it's like when I wake up, how am I feeling? And I'm gonna go with that. And if that's creation, I'm gonna go with creation. If that's business, I'm gonna go with business. And
But
I
Gabby's
also,
way is better, I think. Gabby's way is definitely better and probably healthier.
If I don't do yoga in
but
the
it
morning, I'm gonna be
depends.
very pissed off.
I've been running a
You
lot.
have
It's
to
been
know
helping.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, I love a good
you have
jog in
to
the
know
morning.
yourself.
I have 3 puppies and a cat, and so I don't have a choice but to get up at 7 a.m. And so by the time I'm outside, I'm like, I might as well just go for a quick jog because I'm being pulled anyway. So
So true. And then Austin, for you, you're like, I know I have things I have to get done. So I'm time blocking, but I'm also keeping my own perspective, at forefront. So if I'm feeling like this day isn't really going well, I'm going to schedule in some time for a nap or schedule in some time for something that has nothing to do with what I'm doing. So I think that that's a great way to keep your mental space, healthy, and just knowing yourself and reflecting on, what do I need? Because I know this has to get done, but what do I need in this very moment? So all of those are super, super important. Um, so I guess like the next question that I have is, in your opinion, what is the most important thing an artist should master when they're building their craft? Like, what is that thing that they need in order to just ace it,
I
if
would
that's
say,
even a thing?
oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I just said, oh man, because it's such an intense question. Gabby, you can go.
Oh, I was going to say honing in on your craft and understanding the business. And like, again, even, not saying that you have to be a master at learning every aspect of the business, but going back to something Jesse said earlier, if you don't know, ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not know how to do something. And I saw somebody put this in the comments and I wanted to kind of bring it up, but learning the art of delegation to the right people is extremely important. And I think all of that kind of falls underneath like the craft of learning the business. But those two kind of go hand in hand for me, because if you're not, giving the artistry part of yourself the right time or the right nutrition that it needs, kind of like with kids or like with the plant, like if you're not giving one plant the water, the sustenance, whatever it needs, it's not going to bloom the same way the other one would be that you're giving all of your attention and time to. So there's definitely a delicate balance to it. But I think that for me, those two areas are like extremely, extremely important to master. And when I say master, it's not like you have to have it down in like a day or a year. It's going to take, I mean, I'm not a master at it, but it's going back to that word journey. It's definitely, it helps to craft the appreciation that you have for things as you're continuing on your journey when you learn how to work towards mastering something.
I feel like the soundtrack to this is going to have to be Don't Stop Believing, because journey is definitely the main word that we got. Yeah, I think a big thing is learning your process and owning your process, because there's a lot of different, when you're called on to do the task that is at hand, which is at the end of the day being an artist, the more that you work on it, the more that you grow, the higher your threshold, the higher your expectation of self is going to be, all of these things. But it's also being aware that if you've really put in the time, if you really put in the dedication, then you at your worst is still going to be better than a lot of people at their best, because nobody can be nobody can be a better you than you. So figuring out the process of who you are as an artist, what your artistry is, and when the time comes, being ready to just show up and show out. Uh, it sounds simple, I imagine, but it's really something that is a reminder. Like when people say things like, just breathe. It's like, I am breathing. And then you stop and you're like, oh, that's what breathing is. That type of situation.
I think your context for why you're creating and your why is really important, and what you want people to get out of what you're creating is really important. Um, when I was young, I just wanted to make stuff that sounded cool, that I thought was clever or something. And I think now I'm much more focused on what is my audience going to get out of this? How are people going to feel after they listen to this? How am I contributing to others? I think having that and being really clear on why you're doing this, because there's a lot of things you could do in the world. Being an independent artist is not an easy one. So unless you have a really good foundation of why you're doing this and how you want to impact people and the way you want to be a part of people's lives, I think that's important, just so you have that to hold on to when it's not going great, which it won't always be going great, you know?
I love that. So many amazing nuggets. I see people in the chat talking about vision board quotes like all day being dropped in this webinar, and I totally agree. Absolutely. And it's really important to keep that perspective and to know why you're doing what you're doing, because like you said, it's not an easy journey. It's not a short, quick overnight journey always. So coming back to the why and keeping that into perspective is huge. So during quarantine, like a lot of people have been, going live, a lot of people have been creating music and releasing projects. So for artists that have, that are ready to record that album right now, they're in their house, they're ready to make this thing happen. Who should they reach out to? Like what are the steps that they should kind of take to get ready for this release and make sure that it's, as successful as it can be? What are some suggestions? Like maybe the top two people that they should reach out to, or types of.
Okay, I think it depends on what how your metrics for a person's metrics for success are. I've witnessed people that have come out with projects and 10, 20 people may have heard it, like, or not, that's an exaggeration. Their immediate circle heard it, and from that immediate circle, they ended up using their immediate circle to end up to a phone book. All right, take two, y'all. Ended up using their immediate circle, and then someone in their phone book was like, "Oh snap, this is dope. I know a guy," and then they introduced them to a guy, and then now it's turning into a situation of whether or not this artist wants to take on management, wants to take on this, and this is in 2-3 weeks of the release, and that's dope. Whereas there's another person that made something that was true to their heart. And they just had the right amount of hashtags, whatever it may be, and they got a lot of eyes and attention on it. And it was great because they both got what they wanted. Neither of them have figured out how to leverage that into income quite yet, but they got the thing that they considered success. What I would consider success is an ability to connect with my support group, the people who are genuinely interested in what I do, and figure out how to make it monetarily make sense for me while also making it fulfilling for the person that's investing in this experience. And so for that to happen with me, I have to make sure that the content is strong. I have to make sure that everything is covered legally, so that if I'm doing if I'm doing something that sounds like an interpolation of something, making sure that I can legally do that interpolation so that that can come out. Making sure that my release is on par with what I feel represents me, and making sure that my support base is well well entertained and well sustained by what I'm putting out. So that's my metric for success. But if you want to get viral, find the right hashtags. If you want to get representation, find the right people to communicate with. But at the end of the day, be specific to what your success is.
Love that. That goes back to kind of Gabby's point on knowing your goals, setting your goals, so that you can then, match those goals up with who, which track you need to go. So love that. Anyone else, any suggestions on who they should reach out?
I would say press. I know, and I saw somebody in the comment section that was asking a question about this when Jesse mentioned emails, lots and lots of emails. it's hard to confidently send a shitload of emails when you feel like nobody's going to respond and or you don't get responses. But to that I say keep emailing, because there is going to be somebody that responds, and it might be the right person, the right outlet at the right time. And I think, doing a lot of research on who to email and who to reach out to with with regards to different press is extremely important. A lot of times companies and booking agents do this too, for, I get it, because you don't want like millions of people emailing you, but a lot of times companies and press outlets are not going to have, the direct email to an editor, like just right there on the website. But a good Google will take you a long way. Sorry, my thing cut out. I was just ending with a good Google will take you a long way. So just, knowing how to do research and finding those press outlets and finding those distribution companies that are going to put your things out in a timely manner. And don't be afraid to, get up in there and call corporate if you need to, if things are not, distributed how you need it to be distributed. So fearlessness.
I think that is like one of the most brilliant things. You can Google pretty much anything. You can, if you can find pretty much anyone's email address somewhere. If you're creative and you're scouring LinkedIn and Facebook and every possible, you can find pretty much everyone's email address. I think right now everything is weird because compared to a year ago, everything's out the window. All the stuff that has been working, because I'm in the middle of putting a record out. I didn't know if I should. I'd been sitting on it. I was like, well, I might as well. I don't want to just have it on a hard drive. It's not going to do me any good. So I started putting singles out. Most of the blogs and the press and the radio stuff that I had gotten in the past, like 90% of those people don't have jobs anymore. Like they were like, we love you, but we can't help you. We don't work here anymore. So now it's trying to find new creative ways. And I think right now, always, but especially right now, we really need to give ourselves a break. And like even the best laid plan, a virus doesn't care about your plans, right? So you really got to give yourself some space and some grace and like, but press 100%, but it's, you just have to be creative. You just have to, because a week from now, the whole world could be different, So, but yeah, you can Google just about anything, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I think that, it's really important to just know that things continue to shift. And the best thing you can do is just learn it, gain more information, read some articles, about what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then, follow that blueprint. No point in reinventing the wheel unless you have to. So the last question I want to ask before we get into the Q&A, because there are some amazing questions that are in the Q&A for us. So the very last question I have is, how do you maintain your mental kind of zen? Like, how do you maintain that mental health within yourself, balancing all that is going on? What's your like one go-to activity or thing that you do to kind of decompress and make sure you have that balance?
A good glass of Chardonnay and a good movie. And I like to hang out with my cat, even though she doesn't like hanging out with me. But it's fun to sit 30 feet apart. That's her version of affection. When she has her back turned to everybody, but she's in the same room, so she feels like it counts. But just being able to sit down, like for me, my zen time outside of yoga is just watching a movie and drinking a glass of wine. Sometimes it might consist of me picking up, guitar if I hear something or feel something in my spirit that, might just be rooted in something that I just experienced earlier that day. But for me, it's like just sitting down with my favorite wine and just watching a movie or all of the SVU episodes that I've already seen 3,000 times. But just not doing anything, literally just not doing anything.
Yes, love that. Glass of wine, movies, and cat time. Jesse, I think you were going on.
Oh, I was going to say therapy has been really helpful. I just started with a new therapist like in the last month because I just couldn't take it anymore, and obviously like, yeah, I've gone like way back into nostalgia. I'm like revisiting music and movies and stuff from when I was in high school that are just very comforting. I think one glass of wine is like really great. It's when you get into like four that you could start making some bad choices. So balance is really great. But for me, like, yeah, therapy is really helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's funny how artists are supposed to be vulnerable. Like the perception is that artists are vulnerable, but then in like daily life, we're not supposed to be vulnerable. And so I think it's been an acceptance of vulnerability and how it's things are different by the day. One day I will read as much Shel Silverstein as possible. The next day I will watch just all of Netflix, just Netflix, you know. But then there's times where it's like it's dope to get exercise and go out and get air and figuring out the process that is ever changing. But for the most part, it's acknowledging that there are the days where everything is going right and everything makes sense, and then acknowledging there's some days where the music just isn't going to be right. The vulnerability to do that, same for the days. If the day is not right, acknowledge that and then figure out ways. For me, if the day is not right, acknowledging that it's like, all right, today is an off day. What is off about it? And then let's build from there. So if I can conquer that vulnerability of self, then I can also conquer that vulnerability in artistry and professional life.
Love that. All great, great tips. So I really appreciate you all. We're going to jump into the Q&A. It's going to be a lightning round because we have so many questions, and we're going to try to get through as many as possible. So we're going to start right at the top. What sources of income do you use to fund your work, and how much of your income do you decide to reinvest in your art? Deep question.
Word. Sources of income. All right, so I'm gonna double that one. Sources of income. I uh, teach. I have a teaching a workshop that I run a workshop on the introduction to freestyle and freeform thought and improvisation. And not only am I able to teach and share that on individual platforms, but I'm also able to go into different creative spaces, school systems, things like that. It turns out a lot of people want to learn how to freestyle. So that's something that is a form of income, as well as occasional live shows. And also I'm in California. We got EDD for everything that's been canceled. So it's like all sorts of maintaining of income that comes in, and how much do I choose to reinvest in that? Doesn't really require that much out payment at the moment, because there's no travel that's taking place. There's no need for new equipment. I've already invested in all the equipment I need, and I got a stable Wi-Fi. So that's the whole process. Yeah.
Love that. Next question is, of the three panelists, Jesse is the only one with a website, but everyone has a website here. Yet the generation of performing musicians I belong to all have websites, because that used to be the way to prove you were a legitimate entity in the business. Can you please comment on the changes and evolution of elements that are considered current best practices? And what do older musicians need to let go of, and what do they need to embrace? Yeah,
I feel like a
super important
website.
question.
Yeah. I feel like a website is definitely good to have. I also think that a lot of people, like everyone has a website because it's easy now. It's easier now to make a website with Squarespace or Wix or whatever. But I feel like what sets you apart from other people in this sea of everybody having websites is what's on your website, and the look, what gets people engaged in your website. For me, I change the photos on my website often, because every time you go back to it, it's like, oh wait, there's changes, that means there's other changes, on different tabs. So it on. So but I think that websites are always important. I don't think that's something anybody should ever let go, because that's like a central location for all of your stuff. So yeah.
I just like the idea that I'm in a category of older musician now. I just thought that was pretty amazing. But there's the barrier of entry is so much easier now. Everyone can build a website in a couple of hours with Squarespace. I remember when iTunes came out and people were like, "That's amazing that you're on iTunes." And it's like, no, man, if you have $30, you can put anything you want on iTunes. But people just don't know that. I think for me personally, I don't do as good of a job as embracing new technology. I'm not on TikTok. It like freaks me out. I think it's awesome for people, but like I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. And whereas like younger artists are building entire careers, real careers out of TikTok, you know, that's just like the world we live in right now. Um, but yeah, I do think it's funny that I'm now considered an older artist. I don't know if that's what they meant, but I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah. Mhm. Go ahead, Austin.
Ditto. No, yeah, I have a website as well. I think that the barrier to entry is different depending on, again, what your metrics for success are. Do you want to do wine and dine dinner gigs and, you know, play at a fancy restaurant? Then it'll be very beneficial for you to have a website. Do you want to reach out to label representation and things like that? Yes, it'd be very beneficial for you to have a website. All that is very beneficial. But is it like, do you want to build up a thing where you amass a massive following? Then it'd be good to build a social media platform. Do you want to do a thing where you can do something in your neighborhood and your local people can come and check you out? Then post up set up a soapbox and start jamming, and then give people your phone number. And if you want to do all of those things, then do all of those things and have all these outlets. But at the end of the day, you have so many different ways of establishing yourself as an artist. You don't have to feel limited to doing one thing. You don't have to feel like you're missing out if you're not doing something else. Yeah.
Love that perspective. We're going to try to squeeze in one more question before the top of the hour. What are tips on managing independent contractors like a publicist, agent, etc., specifically ensuring that they are working toward the same goals as me and communicating when they are not?
I feel like outlining. I'm extremely specific with the people that I've hired on my team. I have 3 executive aides on my team, and I outline. I give them a job description before I even hired anybody. I gave job descriptions, and I put the list of responsibilities. I put, you know, the expectations. I check in with them often, and also, I mean, I can feel and tell when things are not getting done, especially like if, you know, I've asked you to do certain things for the week and at the end of the week it's still not done. That tells me that there's a chance that you might not be doing other things. So I check in often. It also created space for the people on my team to feel like they can come to me and say, hey, I'm overloaded this week. I can't. Is there any way that we can push some of these deadlines back? And, you know, I'm always willing to figure it out unless there's just a deadline that literally can't be moved back. But as a business owner, I think that just being able to check in with people often, and then also just like being very specific and outlining things on a piece of paper, like a visual piece of paper that you can always go back to. And like, even with that, when it's time to do your taxes at the end of the year and report, you know, how much people are being paid underneath your LLC, you have to be able to document all of those things. So I think when you're starting off, you know, if you've developed your LLC or you're about to start your LLC, definitely make sure that you are keeping a paper trail of things. And I just want to add, like, I started my business in my band in 2016, and I just got to a point this year that where I was able to hire 3 executive aides to join my team. But since from 2016 to now, I was doing all of it by myself. So I'm blessed to be able to get to this point, but I also wanted to make sure that when I brought people on my team, 1, that I could trust them, 2, that I had clear expectations of what it is, because we, you know, we don't have time to sit here and hang out. So, but yeah.
Because I see a bunch of people in the chat saying, I need a team, I need a team, I need a team. And I just want to say before this thing wraps up, you super don't. Especially when you're talking about PR specifically. Like, I've worked with a half a dozen PR companies, and the majority of them just took my money and basically flushed it down the toilet. And they were highly recommended and well respected. And I got way more press reaching out by myself on my own as a heartfelt person to outlets that I thought were going to be good for me than a PR person did at all. Any of the stuff that you think that you need a team for, you absolutely can do yourself. People want to know that there's a human being behind these songs that you're sending out. They want to know who you are as a person. You're going to do a better job of selling yourself than a PR company. I get it. You want to get to a different place. You think having a team is going to get you there. There's very little, unless you're talking about pop radio, which is still run by major labels. Pretty much everything else you can do completely by yourself with a laptop.
And time.
And time and persistence and fearlessness.
Facts.
Awesome. Love that. All right, we're gonna take one more question. If you guys can stay, we're gonna try to take one more question. And if you have to jump off, definitely thank you for joining us. We have a question that says, I'd love to know more about how to follow up with connections I make. I often meet people who enjoy my music and can even possibly plug me in places, but after the first meeting, the trail goes cold.
I
Any
think
tips
one
on
thing that
following
Jesse
up
just
or?
mentioned is like extremely important, that professional persistence. I don't have shame with, emailing somebody back after like a week and a half and saying, hey, just reaching out to follow up with you. Cause people get busy. And sometimes it may not be an intentional trail going cold. Sometimes it's just, people forgot, or, we're in the middle of the pandemic. So some people have all of their kids at home and they got, everybody's on Zoom. There's connection issues. You need help with homework. The dog is peeing in the house. You have to cook dinner. Like there's a lot going on. So sometimes people just might forget. So I think that definitely, feeling okay with reaching out to somebody and, saying, hey, I'm just reaching out to follow up with you. What can I do? What can I give you to help me? Like, do you need anything from me to help me? And yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I've definitely connect with that, Gabby. That idea that if you genuinely feel like there's a thing to follow up on, then there's no inauthenticity in that. You're genuinely following up on that. If it reaching out once, cool. Reaching out twice, not a problem. 3 or 4 times. At the end of the day, it's one person that could possibly help, but also it's just one. So if this connection doesn't end up working out because of over reaching out, that's fine. You still have 800 other people. You still have Google. You still have all of Google to continually contact. So feel free to get out of your own way and let someone know that you genuinely want to follow up on and connect.
Yeah. The worst they can do is say no. So they say no and we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I love all of this. I think it's important to remember that you're just dealing with a person. I think when you're waiting to hear back from someone and you're putting them on a pedestal like that, like they're just human beings. You're a person, they're a person. If they can help you, they probably will. If they're too busy, that's okay. If they haven't gotten back to you because we're in a pandemic and their kids are home and whatever, that's okay too. But like, I think not putting people on a pedestal and just remember it's a human on the other end of that email too, and they probably just forgot or didn't see it, or they have some other thing going on in their life that has nothing to do with you. Like all of that stuff is important to remember.
I love that. Definitely remembering that portion. We're all humans. So, even when you're texting, you see that ellipsis and then it goes away and you start creating this whole narrative around what just happened. And it really could have just been, I got sidetracked with something. So definitely keep following up if you feel like it's important enough to follow up on. Thank you all so much. Huge thank you to the panelists for staying on. Thank you guys, the attendees, for staying on as well. You gave so much information. Truly appreciate you all. Don't worry, you can definitely see this recording. It will be posted on the website. There are also previous in sessions that are also on the website. So any questions that you have around, copyright and building a fan base, like all of these things, we've done in sessions on those. So head over to the website, scroll down and click on artist resources. And then the in sessions will be there as well as on the YouTube page. So feel free to peruse and gain more information on a variety of topics. If you don't see a topic there that you're interested in, again, fill out that survey and let us know so that we can bring industry professionals to you all to discuss these topics. Jesse, Austin, Guitar Gabby, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for gifting your knowledge and your time for all of us and all of the attendees. Thank the attendees for tuning in and checking out everything in the chat. And we just appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for being here with us. I am Kristen B, and this has been In Session. Feel free, Jesse, Austin, Guitar Gabby, if you have anything you'd like to say before we close out. We will connect you all to them and give their information in the follow-up email as well. So don't worry, you'll have that information as well.
I was just going to say thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun, and it was great to virtually meet new people. And just to, follow me on social media at Guitar Gabby, and my band is in the bio. And if anybody out there is ever looking for help with contracting or anything that has to do with the legal and business side of the music industry, would love to help share that education and knowledge with other people.
Wonderful. Jesse, did you have a?
Oh yeah, just thanks for tuning in and hanging out. Austin, Gabby, Kristen, you guys are awesome. Can we do this again tomorrow? Like, I'm super down to hang out all the time. No, this was great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
I wish, but I'm going to be so busy just watching Netflix tomorrow. No, hey, thanks y'all for having me. I always love coming by and being a part of whatever I get to be considered in during SoFar Sounds events. Kristen, thank you so much. Pleasure meeting you both, Gabby and Jesse. And for everybody that's tuned in, I hope to keep in touch in some way, shape, or form. I have social media as well, Austin the Antoine. First name, then my last name. And keep an eye out because live streams, shows, and music are in abundance right now.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you all. Again, my name is Kristen B. This has been In Session, Self-Management Strategies for Musicians. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.